But yeah, you're here. So the topic today is DevOps for SAP CPI, and we'll also just cover API management and what's possible in that perspective. I hope you hear me and already have gotten your coffee and things looks good. So the thing I want to go through here is why you must rethink your integration and why you may consider figuring out a better way of delivering your SAP integration. Then we'll show you what the Figaf tool can do in that perspective. And then let's get started and show you how you can get started with the tool. So why DevOps and what's going on here? Obviously, it may be a little difficult to explain DevOps in a short period of time, and I think as with a lot of other concepts, everybody would have their own kind of idea about what DevOps is, what it means for them. So the broader perspective is somehow a combination of developer and operations, where developers should be able to deliver. But yeah, the idea that developers also should do operations and support and be able to deliver integrations a lot faster is nothing new, but I guess it just makes sense to bundle these things together and make it easier for developers to release code. I think in most SAP organizations I've worked with, developers and monitors and operations is just one, and they work with the same in the same team. So it's not like it's two different organizations. In some cases, I guess it is, but the idea to move these together makes a lot of sense. But I think the thought process you want to consider is what you need to do in order for you to release code faster. And this is what this is about. So why do you need DevOps? I imagine if you look at the backlog of interfaces and projects, you will see you need to deliver a lot more integration at a shorter period of time. That makes it really difficult to keep up with what's going on in the process. And then I guess a lot of you have seen this during the last period of last couple of months, that your team has changed. Either you have reduced the number of employees or consultants, or maybe some have been what's called just furloughed and been let go for a period of time. And I think if you're doing that, it becomes really difficult to get people to continue working in the team. So that's one of the reasons why you want to make it easier for developers to process and join easier. So let me see here. Okay, I think most people are joining now, so it's good. The thing I want to show here in this is our attempt of a DevOps process. And obviously, if you're going through a real specific and have your global template on what you need from DevOps, our process is not really perfect. We obviously would like your input, so put in something in the chat or drop an email if there's something you see we could improve and that could be more interesting to deal with. But yeah, it's not perfect. It's a good place to get started for these things, I think. And obviously, in a lot of times when we talk with customers, we are improving the tool in different areas to address these needs. So if I just take some of the content from Wikipedia, they are writing about DevOps, and obviously this is one concept of this and what kind of processes is involved in this. Obviously you want to do some code development, you want to have some review and source control of these things. You want to be able to build from these concepts or from the code that you're creating. You want to be able to build integrations a lot faster. You want to be able to test the things that are going on, and then you want to get feedback and ensure that things is working. You want to have artifacts, understand what's in your repository and directory. You want to be able to do release management, have correct approvals along the way, and be able to automate as much as possible in this process. And then you want to configure the infrastructure and the management in a way, maybe not infrastructure in the CPI context, because it's just the iflows, but there may in global templates be more that you want to put into that. And then we want to look at monitoring and testing how this is going. And obviously end user experience, not really there. Let's just see here. So let's get started covering these different tracks that is going on. So in our development, normally we will get some kind of a ticket in the Figaf tool that correspond to a ticket or incident or whatever you call it in your Jira or ServiceNow, or all the other hosts that you have in it. You will then be able to add all the objects that's changed as part of this, and based on this ticket, you can then use and understand and document all the things that is delivered as a part of this process. And this ticket also is a basis for your transports. So let's start with that. So I just got where did it go? Service request from our team that we needed to build something, and I think this makes a good case for it. So we're getting this Jira incident that we need to fix, and what we'll do is we will go to the Figaf tool, and here in the Figaf tool we then have a list of all the things that you're going on. We'll go into the ticket section, and I'll try to cover these along the way. If you have any questions, you can put them into the chat, and I'll try to answer them in either now or at the end. And if I forget it, please remember or re-ask the question. So we'll create an incident. The ticket ID is here. This is so we will take the title. We will say this is on our CPI landscape, and that's all we need to do. We can take the description from here if we want to. That way we know what's going on and what's happening as a part of this. So now we've created a ticket in the Figaf tool, and we are then able to know what we have to change here. So this was the ticket part, and in here we can then add all the artifacts that we perform as a part of this. So next up is we obviously want to develop this, and we are adding quite a number of different tools that you can use as a part of this. So you will still do development of your iflows in BPMN model. We cannot really find a good way to do that. We have added a Git repository that allows you to do change management, understanding what's changed of your CPI system. We will give you a user-friendly UI that enables you to work in a real IDE to do the development instead of working in the web for these things, because obviously a lot of time when you're developing scripts you need to have a lot of dependencies in place, and we're also providing some unit test scripts, and with these you can actually run a lot of the things a lot easier, so you can actually debug your scripts. Obviously it's not everything that it will cover, but it will give you a good idea about what's going on. So there's obviously objects we cannot really enable you to debug, but most cases will work fine. We provide some, in this repository there's templates for some plugins. That's Gradle plugins, and a Gradle plugin is, I think we'll cover it later, it's some different actions you can perform on projects. And we have one that allows you to upload and download and deploy CPI content directly from the IDE, and we have one that allows you to do this from the Figaf, or run test cases in the Figaf tool. We also have shared scripts and resources, and this is really the part that we got from the Enterprise Service Builder, where you could create a message mapping, use it in multiple integrations and stuff like that, and that really made it a lot easier to handle different scenarios, and this is a way to deal with it. I'm not gonna cover that today. Let's just talk about the Git process, how it works. So we have created the Figaf tool, and what it does, it is connects to your CPI system. It then downloads all the iflows, scripts, resources, and everything like that you have in your system, and do versioning of these things. So you can see, okay, you have created a new iflow. It will see all the resources in this, are they new or changed, and then if they're changed, you obviously have a new version that's going on in it. If you then add a Git repository, what it will do is it will then create a Git repository with all of these different objects into it. It will initialize it. It will fill in templates for all for running these Gradle plugins, and that would allow you to actually, with zero knowledge about it, at least from my perspective, I'm not that really good with all these tools, so I can just take copy paste on this, and I got a full environment that I can use to run with. And users then stay in the IRT tool and can move to different branches. The flow is then we'll synchronize from the IRT to a IRT sync branch. Users can then use the plugins to upload or download directly from the IDE, or from CPI to the IDE. They can do commits this way if they're making changes to the test cases, but most of the time they will just pull up these data. So we have the option of not synchronizing the iflows and just give you a plain templated iflow. So it all depends on what you as a user want and what is make most sense for you. Just the Gradle plugins, they are open source. You can also use them without the Figaf tool, but that's they give you these plugins so you can select for any project what should we do with the code, so you can download and upload the plugins in that way. Good. So now let's get to work on this issue. So we need to create a header and set it to a specific value for this webinar. And we'll go to our Gradle plugin here. Here we have, it has then downloaded all the different content we have, and we have just started writing here, set header, property equals to, as we have in our specification. Yes, we will save it. And then I've created some test cases, and with these I can, which one was it I added? That was header 2. So I can run it here. And for this, I haven't created any code. It's just using the plain templates that we have here. And the template then consists this running, and then it has in and output data of it. So it just take the data we have in the test case. We'll show that later. And here you can then see all the data in and output. And we can see we got a warning saying, hey, there was actually a case that we got webinar that was null before. So we're getting a new exception. Obviously, this is something we want to say, okay, this is fine. And you can either delete or edit the test case to make sure it now looks as expected. So that was good. We have tested it and it followed our guidelines, and obviously we just want to run these tests and make sure they're then updated. What we can then do is, still from our IDE, we can upload the iflow, and this will just take all the content from your iflow, deploy it, so we have all the resources involved here, and it will bundle them, upload it as a draft version. We can also specify it to upload as a real version. So now we have uploaded it. We can deploy it directly from in here if we want to, and that's plays good with our run the test suite. So we can just set it to deploy, and then hopefully it will work pretty quickly. In the meantime, so one of the things we don't have here at the moment is the ability to track what's going on in, or to add the correct version. So most of the time you anyway just want to go into here. It's the package that's called faster. Here we have our iflow, so we can go directly here into our CPI iflow. We know that this is in a draft mode. So what we can do is we obviously just, so let me just see if we can find the resource here. We had the script here, set here as 2. And here we can see it has updated it to this new version. And we will set as save as a version, because obviously we want to be able to release this later on. So now we have released it, and what we then need to do is we want to be able to test it, and we can actually test it directly now. We have a test suite that we can run, but we also just want to have the latest information, so once we're searching for it, we can improve it. And we just made an improvement that allows you to only synchronize packages. Normally it will synchronize everything and get all the different information you have here. And we will have synchronized it. Synchronization is finished. And we can see we now got a new version here that's called 50. Yeah. And number of revisions, we can take a look at the changes on the iflow level. So we have our versions here. We can do comparison on all objects, no matter if it's scripts or, as here we have the BPM model. We have just simplified because we wanted to give you some more information. And for instance, as here we have the option to show what resources was changed and when they were last updated. So we can see that I made a change at it a long time ago. So and then if you scroll further down the document, we can also see all the different subfields that's going on in it. So the idea with this is we want to be able to understand what has been changed as a part of this. And give users a way to understand everything that has happened to your CPI system. So now we have done a change of these two interfaces. We want to assign this to the ticket we just created. Webinar header field. So now these should be assigned here. We can go in, we can see where they have been assigned to. And here we can see that this ticket now contains these objects that's a part of this change. And we can see we also got the iflow configuration because we are working on an iflow. We can then use the test cases we have. And I guess that comes to the next part of that. So we started out working on creating a tool that made it possible to do testing of SAP PI, and with the CPI we saw that was something we needed to do also, and then this versioning and everything like that came as an add-on, but obviously is really important in the process, so you understand what's been changed and are able to deliver and test these things. So our main way of creating test cases is record replay, and that means we will select an interface, we will set it into trace mode, and once it's into trace mode, it will then for a period of time collect messages that's being sent to this specific interface. We can download all these different messages, and then we can send it out to the user, and then we can go through all of these different steps and see what has been changed between this. We have a way that allows us to mock interfaces. So if you, for instance, are testing a SuccessFactors interface, it becomes really difficult to test this backend system because you cannot call the SuccessFactors and create employee multiple times, because it will say, hey, or duplicate, it has duplicate checks or whatever, and you'll get some different IDs out. And obviously we can ignore IDs and whatever is required in that perspective. But in a lot of cases, it makes sense to be able to mock scenarios without having to write a lot of code. The only thing you need to do is just to set a flag in the Figaf tool, and instead of calling the real iflow, it will call a mock version, and instead of calling the real service, it will call the Figaf IRT tool, where it will send you the response data back. And you can obviously reuse the test cases multiple times. You can also take the test cases and create updated Groovy unit test for them. So let's look into these details. So here I would then look up what iflows have, what test cases we have, and I can see I have a test case here that I've created today. Obviously I could select, most cases I would need to select all of these, but we just want one here. So we'll just say run on our specific system where we have deployed this new version on, and now it will send this message into the system. And once it has been sent, we can start pulling, and then it will just download all the different parts from the trace message. And we can see it takes a little while because there's a lot of different messages in this. So now we have completed this, we can view the results, and we would expect some differences here. So we can go through the differences, and we can see we found that the property webinar was found in it, but it was not a part of the original method. So we will obviously need just to go through these, or a better way is just to download the report. And so this is a report you can generate for all information, and in this report we can then see a collection of all the different errors, and it just says here the webinar was only found in the tested message, and that means for us we can actually accept this as a good test, and we will then just go here, update this as a test result, and now we have gone through the test case. We'll say this is the new result that we expect the data from, and with that we have a test case we can run. So maybe we'll just start the running of this, and we'll see if we can see if it works as expected. So we'll just pull the results. While I do that, so that was just normal record replay we are doing. If we had done the mocking, it will work the same way. It will just take a minute longer because it needed to create a copy of the iflow, deploy it, wait until it's been deployed, and then it would run it. If we wanted to create, let me just see if this works. So this is completed. So now we can see the test case is successful. We could also create a new test case for this. And we can do that for all the objects you have. So here we can select this this iflow. We will just add it to the existing test suite we have. And we'll just in here we can call them different names and expressions and stuff like that. So that is actually all you need to do in order for you to create a test case. So you just go here, select play, and this will then switch the iflow into trace mode, and then all you have to do is wait for someone to trigger that message. And I got the someone just right here. And once this message has been processed, we can download the messages. So we'll select it, pull the messages, and obviously you can schedule this so it will do it after 10 minutes or whenever you get some data here. And we can see it's just creating the same structure with the number of messages. Once it's been processed successfully, 35, you can select it and create a new test case for it. And now you can use this, and you have two test cases that now is obviously covering the same thing, but they could be covering different things. The thing we want to achieve with this testing is make it easier to do regression testing, make it easier to test all the scripts you have, because they can sometimes be difficult fetching inside of either the unit scripts or inside of the flow. And with this, you can just send all the messages in, and you can verify that they're giving the correct results. Any questions? Just put them into the chat. I'll try to cover them along the way. So that was our testing. So now, as you remembered, we have created a ticket that corresponds to our Jira ticket. We had listed the object that was a part of this. And now we come to the important part. This is a part of our transport and release procedures. And this is where it becomes really useful. The idea is, obviously you want to be able to somehow separate deployment from configuration. So no one really needs to be, you don't need to have as much information about what's going on in the iflow that you just one place can configure. Once you deploy this on your productive system, this is what's going to happen in that case. And we have created a mechanism that allows you to handle the transport, and that means once we're importing it on our QA system, we can see what's going on and what the output will be. Before we could start the configuration right now. I want to do it with the transport, because then the process about releasing CPI becomes a lot easier. So we can take out tickets, we can create a transported both on packages, iflows, and value mappings that has been changed as a part of this. We can deploy it to virtual systems. So if you have you only have a dev and a production box, you can use the dev system as a virtual box or virtual test system where you can add different where it will add pre and post fixes depending on the object, and that way you can deploy the same iflow 2 times on the same system. We have approval in the landscape, so you can specify who is actually able to approve any transport along the way. And then once that's done, you can do documentation of the ticket or the change that has happened. So let's try that. So we will go back to our ticket that we created. We can see now testing was successful, so that's good. And we simply just click on the start transport. This will then create a transport with all the objects that we need here. So we have obviously only the iflow, but we could also have added other objects as a part of this. We can go in here to the configuration. Store transport configuration. That normally does not happen. Yeah, have any idea? Yeah, maybe there was a small change in this part, but the idea would be that you would have a flow that looks like this. Hopefully you can see that, where you can then specify for the parameter that is called target host. It will be development, QA, and production. The password that you want to use will be QA or test, and with that, all of this is configured as a part of the transport. And that means once you're importing this on the QA system or production system, these values will be overwritten or added to the configuration. So you can see what's going on and why these values are here. And then once you have done the transport, you've created the transport and have gone through everything, you can send it to approval depending on what landscape it is. In this landscape, apparently we don't have an approver on. If we had an approver on, we will get a box up here saying send to approval, and then some person in charge of this approval will then need to approve this configuration. So we can see here the landscape we have configured here. Here we have the CPI, and we can obviously not change number of systems, but we can change who is going to approve these. So if I create a transport again, I will be the approver of these things. Oh, if there were changes done. So now we have, let's just see if it'll work. So we can import it here. Hopefully that will work. And as you saw in the landscape, it will be possible to do import and configuration or deployment. So you can import but wait with the deployment. I think that's something that some people are doing. They want to just create it and not just work on it. So now we can see it was imported successfully. We can see that it seems like that this was working here. because it has gone in and it has seen one of the configuration parameters that we had here was not actually, there was not a user password for OData password 2. And with that in mind, we can then see, once we have imported, are there any bad things we need to look into. So that was the transport. We had completed the transport. It was all successful. We can resolve it. And now it is resolved. The data is in production. We can generate a report. And the report will then contain all the information that is a part of this. So here we have the report. We can see what test cases we have run, the test report, so it will just show the last run and number of successful messages here. We got information about the ticket, and we got information about the transports. So you can see all of this information here. And the idea is that you then go to your Jira task, set it to done, and you will then just add this, attach this, the document you just downloaded, the ticket report 55. And now we've completed this, we have documented everything, we have tested and managed everything in our landscape. And if someone wanted to go back and see what has been changed as a part of this, they could open the ticket, or they can see what data was changed, and it's all a part of the same ticket. Any questions? If you have questions, put them into the chat or raise your hand. That should be possible somehow. That was a little about how this development process works, what you can expect to see in it, creating test cases, managing the test cases, making sure you have valid test cases that are going on in this process. Then the last thing we want to cover as a part of the operation is also monitoring. And I think this is also, one of the things that we can add some value to the process. We have two really important parts here. One, we have an iflow monitoring with groups, so you can group multiple iflows together into one group and view it in one go. And the idea is, in here on our message monitor, we can then create a new filter that's called Webinar. We want to see completed or failed messages for the past month of specific types. We'll take these, and we can generate an OData filter that's actually being used as a part of this. Just press save, and now we can see what kind of messages that we have, and we can see here the data in an easier way. So you can see the sender and receiver of this information. You can see the persisted messages and payloads of this. Yes, hopefully there will be a recording of it. Yes, I am trying to record it. Let's see how well it goes. Normally it works. So, and then if we can drill down and only select specific iflows and see how they are performing. The idea here is, I've used it in two scenarios. One where I had a couple of iflows that were linked together, and one was called a lot of times. That meant it was really difficult to actually see the main process. So with that, I just created a tile for this process and then deleted or did not have this specific flow with it. The other place where this is interesting is that you can give business users access to this, so they can see only one or more of these tiles. So not the whole thing, but only the finance or the HR process that they are in charge of. That means it's also a lot easier for you to give them. I know the CPI have now added an option to only view business data for specific users, but they will still have to figure out what kind of iflows and everything like that. That's interesting for them. So that's the monitoring part. Then we got the alerting part, and the alert is that you create a filter. And that was the reason we added this small box at the end. So here we can put in an OData filter. Customer orders. And then what it will do is it will then download these messages. So the idea is, normally in Solution Manager you will just download all failed messages, and that's somewhat okay, but I think in a lot of times it can be approved, because in Solman you'll see failed message because sometimes you may don't want that specific iflow to fail, but just add it as a log. So with that, we've added the capability to do logging of these things. So hopefully, so now we can see here it's processed these iflows that we selected here. Normally you probably just select failed messages and it'll use that as the filter. And we can see all the data about the iflow, what are the payloads and stuff like that. We can create a rule for it. If there are an alert or an error, we will get an XPath expression that catched this specific rule. So I think we'll not do any more on that one. But let's just look at the failed rule. So here we have an iflow, and it fails because the iflow is not operational. Here we are getting these the specific information. We can send information about how to resolve this specific issue in a simple way. So when someone receives this, they know, okay, these are the steps that to resolve it, instead of you having to figure out which document describes how to solve this issue. So this is all about making it easier for everybody to do support on your PI system or CPI system for that matter. We also implemented this notification or stop mute notification. This is really important. If you, for instance, have a system down and then your inbox will just get flooded with all of these different information, and you don't really want that. Or you can create a webhook, so we can send it to some webhook, see the data, and with that person will be, or you can send it to a webhook that will send it to Jira, and there you can then get information about this iflow fails, and you can start your support process there. So all of this is a way to make it easier for you to deliver integration, make it more reliable, cheaper to deliver integration, and from a developer perspective, try to remove a lot of all these boring tasks that you normally don't get to do. So yeah, that's what we're trying to achieve here. We have the same kind of development flow for API management, where you can take API proxies, transport them the same way. Monitoring is a little different, but again, you can set up rules, and it is really simple to work with in the same way. So you can deliver integrations no matter what platform in one way. Deployment options, you can run this on your laptop. It is really simple to get started. It is just a jar file you download. use a run command, and then you run this jar file, and you can then start it up on your laptop and try it out there. And once you're satisfied with it or wanna share it with someone else, you can either use the Figaf IRT cloud, or you can use the Figaf with a real database on your productive server, so everybody get access to it. You can sign up at figaf.com/IRT